As a pilot wife and aviation professional, are you prepped for disasters and emergencies? Now, this is a podcast that I did over on my other channel, Lower Toxic Life, but I wanted to share this with you because I know as a pilot wife for years, living in a very remote area, the reality that often power would go off, snowstorms would hit, fire evacuations, different things. And as we know, a lot of times those things happen when the pilot is not home. So I want to give you some tips to prepare for those emergencies, disasters, and just things that happen in day-to-day life so that you don't get caught home alone without preparation and supplies, and especially if you have small children. Welcome to the Pilot Wife Podcast. I'm your co-captain, Jackie Elmer. I've been a pilot wife for over 3 decades, and I cannot imagine any other lifestyle. Yes, there's no doubt it's a mix of turbulence and blue skies, but what life isn't? I'm here to bring you the best that the aviation life has to offer. And if you want the Pilot Wife Survival Guide and Checklist, go to pilotwifechecklist.com. Now, stow your baggage, strap in, and let's unpack the pilot wife life. How to prep for an emergency and disaster situations so you're not caught off guard. I'm Jackie Elmer. Welcome to lowertoxiclife.com. Now, I want to be the first to say that I am not a professional prepper. This is not a prepping channel. So please don't rely on this as a long-term, if the earth implodes, we completely shut down as a country or anything like that. I just am trying to prepare people for disasters that happen, just like we recently experienced here in the United States where I live, such as Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Milton, and other hurricanes such as Katrina, all the way back, well over a decade ago, probably 2 decades ago now. When these disasters happen, oftentimes we're not fully prepared. Now, I have a number of Mormon friends, and I've always marveled when I've been in their homes at their neat, full pantries, quite organized, and their long-term planning. And there was always a little piece of me that thought, wow, what would it be like to have that type of organization in my pantry to begin with, because if you were in my pantry, you'd know why I'm saying that. And just is there an ease of mind or a level of lack of discomfort that goes with knowing that you're prepared for any situation? So again, this is about emergency situations such as hurricanes, fires, which I've experienced, electrical grid going off the grid if something were to happen, snowstorms, and social disruptions, such as what we experienced in the summer of 2020. I don't know about you, but living in Scottsdale, Arizona, like many big cities, we had a lot of rioting, a lot of violence out in the streets, and a lot of situations that were kind of scary where, for me, I just thought to myself, I don't want to go out in that situation. I don't want to put myself potentially out in harm's way or to get involved in something that I don't want to be a part of if I can alleviate that at all. So again, and this is not about a lot of prepackaged ration style food or any of that. If that's what you're into, that's fine. That's not my gig, and that's not what we're covering here. And again, this is in no way meant to fearmonger you or anybody. It's just that preparation can truly ease the mind and release you from worry. Now, here's the thing. Everybody has different budgetary constraints, and I fully understand that. So budget as you can, adding a little bit here and there, an extra jar of almond butter, an extra bag of nuts, an extra bag of pet food. Those are situations that we often don't think about are our pets. Coffee. What are those staples that you use regularly? Now, I mentioned the electrical grid, and I have recently started really studying solar flares and a lot of what's going on with the planet, not because I live and die by it, but because it's a particular interest that I have. And it's interesting to me how history often repeats itself when solar flares happen, when there's a disruption in the universe. I can't remember what it was from the Star Wars movie where it was Obi-Wan Kenobi who felt the disruption in the force. He felt a planet blow up in the universe. And I've always thought about that, but there are things that disrupt our normal flow here on the earth and in the universe. And being aware of that can help us plan. Again, not fearmonger, but plan for certain events. There are threats from other countries. Certainly here in the US, we hear about that all the time, from Russia to Iran to Hamas to Hezbollah to, all of these things that most of us have been conditioned all of our lives to fear or be aware of. So there are threats. We've had port and trucker shutdowns and strikes, not only in the US, but also in Canada. So preparing for those things can be critical. Now, as I record this, we are just under 2 weeks out from the election here in the United States. So it's crazy times, and there are a lot of news, mainstream news, and other accounts on X and other information providers, if you will, who are predicting riots and store closings for safety and all of that. So again, just be prepared. Now, my own experience, I lived up in Lake Arrowhead, California, it's in Southern California, near Big Bear. It's in the mountains, and we experience regular snowstorms, fog, and situations where we basically have 3 roads in, 3 roads out, and those would get closed sometimes due to massive snowstorms and fires and different things like that. So I learned when I lived up there. Also, I should note that we had 2 grocery stores up there, but we didn't have Costco, no Trader Joe's, no Target, no big type shopping situations. So I learned how to plan ahead and stock for a rainy, snowy, or foggy day. Oftentimes when those snowstorms would hit, it would knock out our power. So we'd be without power for anywhere from 2 hours to 12 hours to 24 hours to a couple of days sometimes. So I learned how to camp in my own home, if you will, but I learned how to be prepared. And that made the experience, honestly, a little more fun, like camping with my children in my house, and not quite as scary when you know that you're not going to starve. You've got water. You've even got a way to flush the toilet if you need to, and even take a shower if you absolutely have to, or something along those lines. All right, so I'm going to cover some categories of things to always be thinking about and keep on hand. First of all, I mentioned the electrical grid. So gas. I have a gas-powered stove, but it does have an electrical unit that clicks it on. So obviously, I would have to have matches or a lighter in order to get the stove actually lit. So what do you have? There's also gas in your car. Make sure that in times like these, I recommend that if you know a storm is coming, whether it be a fire or whether it be a hurricane, a snowstorm, or anything like that, that you make sure that you keep your gas tank on full. We watched Florida run out of gas, and many people, including friends of mine, who got trapped there, if you will, because they didn't plan ahead of time to get out of Dodge when they could. So make sure your gas tank is full. Make sure that you have maybe a gas can that's full if you're in a situation where that might be something that you need to be concerned with. Also, I know for me, we have a gas heater that's a patio heater. We have a gas grill. We're making sure all of those propane tanks are full and ready. Matches, lighters, a camp stove, perhaps. Maybe you do camp and you have that already. Just think about what you might have to do if power went out, the grid source, something happened. How would you cook for yourself? Now, I know one year at Thanksgiving, I actually cooked pumpkin soup on my grill using it as the stovetop. I made pumpkin soup for a crowd of about 20 people. We were going to Thanksgiving dinner, and I didn't have power. And so I got resourceful, fired up that gas propane grill, and cooked my soup, and nobody knew the difference. It was fabulous. So I mentioned candles, flashlights, batteries. Think how dependent we become on our iPhones, our smartphones, and the little flashlight that it has on there. But make sure you have all of that already. A hand can opener, and other needed utensils. We come to rely on electricity for so much of what we do. If you're used to opening any cans with an electric can opener, make sure you have the old-fashioned hand crank can opener just in case. Paper goods for eating if water is scarce, right? So have a supply of paper plates and paper utensils so that you can still eat. Cash. Make sure you have a reserve of cash on hand. That way you can shop, you can tip, because you never know when certain things are going to be shut down. And I know for me, living up in the mountains, I always carried a 20 in my console in my car that was always there in case I needed help. If I got stranded and needed help putting my snow chains on, I always had a $20 or $40 or whatever to tip the person who helped me. I never had to use it, but again, it gave me peace of mind knowing that I was going to be able to look for help and receive help as needed. Now, along those lines, it's not a bad idea in winter to travel with a few blankets in your car as well if you're in a situation where you might get caught in a snowstorm. We had a situation once where a major blizzard came through, one that caught the entire mountain off guard. We had come from Phoenix driving back from a family trip. We were literally in our flip-flops because we were, just headed home. A massive snowstorm hit and we ended up stranded, or stuck, I should say, not stranded, but we ended up stuck in a major traffic jam, people sliding off the road. And we literally wondered if we might end up spending the night there. And that's when I really realized the value of, from about October through May, to make sure I have socks and shoes, real shoes, and blankets in my car. So you want to prepare for that. Now, I mentioned pets. Have an extra supply of food, cat litter, whatever it is that you need, medications for at least 30 days, because supply chains can shut down and become challenging. We all experienced that, or most of us did, during 2020. Recently here in the US, we had the very short-lived port closures, but that created an issue, or at least an issue in people's minds with fear. The Canadian truckers, there's a lot of different things like that. And, unionized groups go on strike from time to time, and that can really stall things, delay things. So you want to be prepared. So some of the personal effects you want to keep in mind. What about medications and your medical needs? IDs, insurance cards, any of those important papers. And speaking of medications, where do your medications come from? Now, I know here in the US, crazy as it seems to me, we are quite dependent on China for a lot of our medications. Now, knock on wood, I'm happy to say I am not currently on any medications. So for me personally, it's not an issue. My husband takes one or two. My parents take some. And so it's something to be aware of. So my understanding is that so many of our medications come from China. Now is the time for you to find out, where does that supply source come from? Where does your pharmacist get that from? Those are important things to note. Now, do an inventory and think on your habits, food, and life. Begin to make a list of those viable foods and those meal options and truly create a meal plan. And what I recommend doing, and you can watch my capsule meal plan video, it's right here on YouTube, but create a meal plan. Make a list of your healthy proteins, make a list of healthy fats, and make a list of those healthy slow carbs that you will eat to sustain you. When you have that simple list, it makes it easier to put together a meal plan that's not fussy, not challenging, or any of that. And then again, be thinking, when you look at that meal plan, how would you prepare and eat if you had no power for 2 days or a week or a month? Think of North Carolina. Just recently going through the Asheville, North Carolina area, and specifically up in the more remote mountain areas, a gentleman who I'm friends with just recently told us, actually yesterday, that his sister who lives there just got her power restored after nearly 30 days without power. Small children, all of that. So you can only imagine what that's like. So, my own experience in 2020 and 2021, when we began to experience supply chain issues, what would seem to be simple foods for me became unavailable. My favorite brand of water-packed artichoke hearts, sun-dried tomatoes. I mean, and certain pastas that I had relied on forever, which quite frankly never came back to Trader Joe's. I don't know why. I'm sad to think that possibly the company that manufactured that cut way back, went out of business during that time or whatever. But be thinking of those things. And again, that's where making that inventory list of your favorite foods, your favorite meals, and what are the ingredients that go into that so that you can prepare ahead. So again, think about those whole nutritious foods that truly power your mind, power your body, and then work it backwards. Work it backwards. What do you absolutely need to survive? What can you survive eating without refrigeration and cooking? I love to rely on healthy fats in the form of nuts, jarred olives. There are simple things like that that I know can satiate my body, reduce hunger, and don't have to be necessarily refrigerated. Now think about water filters, and storage, okay? Certainly, if you live near a body of water and you have a Berkey filter or Brita, even not the best, it has a lot of controversy, but even Brita alone is better than nothing. So make sure that you have something that you can begin to filter your water with. Certainly, storing a certain amount of water bottles and things like that is important too, even though I personally prefer to avoid plastic water bottles with BPAs and all of that. I'm also a realist and realize that I have to survive. And so I'm going to do the best that I can in all those ways. So then as you're doing your inventory, look at your pantry, your cabinets, your refrigerator, your freezer, factor in those eating habits and those healthy habits. And what are those things that are non-perishable? Now, I don't typically eat protein bars. I try to avoid processed foods as much as possible. But you can bet that I have protein bars, protein powders, and some of those healthier, better option, but still processed foods that I don't typically eat on a regular basis. I certainly have them in my storage area in case push comes to shove and I need those. Okay. So one thing that I always keep on hand is a big jar of coconut oil. Coconut oil, and again, watch my video with my 20 magic uses for coconut oil, but it's great for cooking, for cleaning, putting a little bit of it in your tea or coffee. It's very satiating. It's a healthy fat that powers your brain. It is absolutely phenomenal. Baking soda, Bronner's. You've heard me talk about the Bronner's Castile soap, alcohol, witch hazel, hydrogen peroxide, and then essential oils like tea tree, peppermint, lavender. Have a supply of Band-Aids. I already mentioned batteries and flashlights. Have blankets and then have a large mirror. It's interesting. I did a survival course with my school board and a group of community members where we were given an exercise of rating like 20 things that we had if our plane crashed and we all survived and nobody was injured and we're out in the desert area because, as I mentioned, I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. You know, how would we order in rank of priority the different things that we would have? And the mirror was in there, and that ended up being number one, number two, somewhere really high on the list of things that you need to survive. And then I recall watching a lot of the individual footage during Hurricane Helene when people were trying to get rescued and how many of the helicopters saw people who were shining a mirror into the sun. And I thought, man, that's so true. It's so true. Now I'm going to bring up a funny one, and that's toilet paper. We all know the hoarding stories of toilet paper way back in the day. But again, make sure you have a stash on hand. And then electrolytes. We talked about water, but when you're filtering your water, it takes out all of those good electrolytes that you need. So make sure you have a supply of good sea salt, magnesium, zinc, vitamin D. Okay, those are important things. Now, something as simple as seeding jars and the seeds that you can put in it, like mustard greens and alfalfa sprouts, and a lot of those, you can sprout those in as little as 2 to 4 days. You need some water. It does take a lot of water. So you want to do this hoping that your water supply isn't scarce. Have those seeds on hand, have those sprouting jars, and then you can make your own little food that, again, is very nutritious for your body. It's brain food, and it helps not only sustain you, but keep you high functioning. And then look at those canned goods, right? Canned fruits, canned vegetables, canned tunas and meats. Now try to find BPA, non-BPA canned foods. It's not always perfect, but it's progress over perfection for sure. I mentioned nuts, protein bars, protein powder, nut butters like almond butter, peanut butter, oils, your olive oil, your pure olive oils, almond oils, avocado oil, and coconut oil for sure. And then make sure you have a supply of work gloves on hand too. You never know when you're going to need those things. All right, so this was my quickly put together in the reflection back on Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Milton, my own experiences with fire, evacuations, snowstorms, and living in a remote area in the mountains, and just some simple common sense things that most all of us have lived through in the last 4 years that you never know when they might circle around again. Grab my guide over at lowertoxiclife.com for this and other great mechanisms for grocery lists, how to read labels, recipes, and all the different things that help sustain you in a lower toxic lifestyle and sustain you as a peak performer and functional human being out into the world. And be sure to subscribe like all the cool people. Give me a thumbs up and a comment. Do you ever find yourself on the struggle bus with relationships, career, or life in general? I'm a mindset and peak performance coach helping women rediscover their own sense of identity and purpose, avoid turbulence, and put their own oxygen mask on first. Together, we work to get you out of autopilot and create a better flight plan for life and relationship success. As a pilot wife for over 30 years, I've navigated thousands of miles and moments in aviation, mommyhood, business, and life in general. I would love to offer you a free call to see if I might be able to help you too. You can go to coach.pilotwifepodcast.com. And if you have a topic suggestion or a story to share on the show, go to ask.pilotwifepodcast.com. And of course, you'll find all of this at resources.pilotwifepodcast.com. Please take a moment to review and rate the show on whatever your favorite podcast app is. This helps the show get found by others who need what we have here. And you might win some fun swag for your troubles. I'll see you on the journey, and thanks for listening.